Hi you guys, welcome. I'm here hanging out in my space to craft. This is actually a full voiceover. I've sped up most of the video pretty fast because I actually recorded all of the template use and paper cutting, and then I cut away while I'm doing some work on my Cricut and making the title and ephemera. But until then, you'll get to see laying out of the base pages. So I have a couple of different pieces of paper, a piece of white cardstock, some pink scraps. Spoiler alert, I end up not using that bright pink tag. I make one out of this lighter pink color. Both papers are pretty graphic. One has pink and white sort of hash marks on it. And then I have this one, which is Fun Stamper's Journey. So there are really kind of two different sets of pictures on this. This pair of photos of my parents dancing on board the ship. And then the other two are of one of the shows in the atrium of the ship, a 70s show with, they had the village people and the whole bit. So I'm using some Kiwi Lane templates. I'm trying to decide which ones. These are from, I think it's called Fancy Frills. So I'm just trying to decide, do I want the sort of spiky one or do I want the scalloped? And it's a little bit of a funky scallop. And then I look at this one to see, do I want to use that? Because I definitely want to layer the photos, but I'm going to use this, I'll just call it the pink hashtag paper, as a small border between the pink and this blue paper that I have. So I'm just looking at that to see, do I like that look or would I rather just do the scallops? And I do end up doing scallops on both, and you'll see, you can see here that when you use both templates, they're not quite lined up, but they coordinate. So I think it's a really good combination. So you just flip the paper over, get your pencils, draw it out. And what I'm doing here is I'm drawing both sides so that I can then cut the pieces as large as I need them. And as I said, this is actually about 4 times speed, so I'm not a super speedy fussy cutter. I am using these precision point scissors from Creative Memories. I found them, I had a box of tools that I bought probably shortly before I stopped being a consultant. And I just had this in this box this whole time, and it had a multi-purpose tool and these scissors and a little embossing tool and maybe one other thing. So I'm like, well, that's silly. Those are some really good scissors, a little bit sharper and smaller than their regular scissors. But their scissors are actually really good if you haven't used them before. So there you have it. And what I'm going to do is sort of cut it about down the middle, and it's going to be the center of the paper. I do end up having to trim a little bit more than that off just to get them. I think I didn't cut it exactly in the middle so that it didn't look different for both pages. So you can see I'm laying in the other template underneath it to see how much of that other paper do I want to show. So these templates are pretty handy to use actually. So I'm just using that sort of as a banner in the middle. And here I end up cutting a little too much off the left-hand side, and then I have to trim the right-hand side a little bit too. So I just overestimated, and then I'm like, oh, those aren't even. So more scrapbooking in the real world, where I do a little bit of a goof and have to recover. Nothing major, nothing unrecoverable. It's just paper. Almost nothing is unrecoverable. Worst comes to worst, I find another piece of paper to replace this. In fact, I probably have more of that little teardrop paper. All right, so you can see here, and this is pretty bold for me using two very different patterns like this. So I'm going to end up inking. So I don't need a ton of that. I just want it to show a little bit. Just making sure that I'm doing the right template in the right location. So you guys, I don't know if you're into movies, but my mom and I went to see a movie tonight, and we really enjoyed it. It was The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and it was a story about the spies, etc., that helped England during the war to overcome and, let's say, defeat the U-boats. It was pretty good. We enjoyed it. It's a lot of violence, not too much close-up violence, but lots of shooting, lots of suspense, and it was really, really good. I don't really know how much is accurate. It is based on truth. But if you like movies, you might want to go see it. And it's a fun one for the theater because there's a lot of action and a lot of noise and stuff like that. So pretty cool. So I think this is where I realize I'm a little bit, maybe I've already done it. So I'm using blue ink. It might be Blue Jeans that I'm using. But a distress ink, not a distress oxide. So that's where I realized that it was a little bit wider than the other one. So this will be the center of my page, which is kind of fun. I like those funky frills, it's called, that set. And then here I am just matting my photos. And as always, I make a little adjustment. That's why I use repositionable adhesive. And then these are the other two photos. One is of my mom watching the show, and I'm going to trim those as well, just a bit. And then the other is of the show. Now there's a really bright light behind my mom, and I'm going to be able to cover some of that up in the eventual layout. So we're almost done with this setup part, and then I'll step away from the video and use my Cricut to make a fun title. I have Cricut access. Well, actually, I found out it had expired. I think my credit card had expired, so I had to resubscribe. It's gone up a little bit, but I think it's still worth it. Just for these items, the font and the whatever that I wanted for this would have been something like $6, and it's like $8 a month or something. So, in fact, I think I may have done it for the year and saved a little money. So I'm just looking at that paper and trying to decide what I want to do with it. And I think I decide that I want to, rather than just having the big block at the center, that I'm going to do a small border on each of the outsides as well. So I'm just trying to decide. And I pick this one partly because it's a little bit funky. It's not the same scallop, but it's a little bit funky. And I think I have just enough paper with this strip left to make it happen. So I'm drawing the template, and then I will fussy cut it out and then cut it down the middle. And that's just to add a little color to the outsides, because I felt like it just needed something to tie in the two sides. And ink those. I wish I had worked this fast in real life, y'all. This is pretty quick. I did end up spending a lot of time on this page because I end up making quite a bit of ephemera. So at this point, I still didn't know what I was going to call the page. But I go off, and it was a 70s show, and my parents are dancing, so I was thinking Dancing the Night Away. And I end up going with BoogieNights. So you're about to see that. I found the word boogie, and then I found a similar font, typed the word nights, attached the word night together, so that the letters were touching, welded it together, and then I did an offset for the two together. So here you can see it. This paper I actually had on the cruise. It was a sticky backed paper. So it's from that cruise, and it was like a card kit or something at one of their crafting activities. And so I sort of unpacked it and decided that I would try and use up some of those papers for cards or whatever. I think I've used some of the card bases that came with it already. So this one I cut out of some shimmer paper that I had, some dark blue shimmer paper. There you go. So I think that's a really cute title. It doesn't end up there. I think I end up moving it a little bit to the right and overlapping the paper so that it felt a little more cohesive. But you can see by overlapping those pictures, I sort of obscured that super bright light that was not a great photo element. So here I'm like, oh, do I like that bright pink tag? And what other ephemera do I have? So I have a few pieces. This is a little Vicky Boutin piece. I have, a couple of things. I have a couple of stars. I have a couple of little wordy bits. I don't have anything really that says 70s or BoogieNights or whatever. So a little bit of a struggle here, and then it hits me that I can go make a disco ball and print that on my Cricut. So I'm going to go off in just a second and come back with disco balls. And here they are. So sorry, there was some audio on there a little bit that got recorded. So I cut out 3 disco balls, 2 smaller and 1 large one. So I put the large one behind the BoogieNights, like it's hanging down from the top of the page. And then the one on the far left, I backed with pink just to pull some pink to that side, to that part of the page. The cut file also came with these little tiny stars, and I used a silver iridescent paper with stars on it as well, and stars in the iridescence. And then the third one is over to the far right, and I just am using that as a basis for some other ephemera. I put a smiley face, that's very 70s. And then you can see that I've switched out the tag for a lighter pink. And so I think that's really coming together. And I decide to pull out and see what I have in the way of brads to put in the top of that tag. So I need something pretty large, and I think I end up with just a clear crystal brad. So I should be posting where I cleaned up some of these brads and buttons. I have 2 different containers, just talked about and did a little bit of sorting on them. Still not perfect. A work in progress. I just used my pokey tool to poke a hole in it. Oh, because I actually backed this tag on the same silver paper. I had a scrap. So just finishing up a few last minute touches, deciding on some things that maybe aren't going to make the page, and we'll just take a few close-up looks. Thanks you guys for watching. Let me know if you like this full voiceover style, and come back again.